For those new to the world of comics, it may seem as if the genre is made up solely of tights and capes and boom-pow saving the world action sequences, but when you look closer, you start to see that there is so much more. Part of the terror of reading a horror novel is the way in which your imagination interacts with the text. There is something special about an artfully rendered full moon swallowing up the sky, or a beautifully drawn phantom creepy crawling its way up someone's body as they sleep. Working together, writer and artist create something that brings horror to a whole new level. So which are the best horror comics with which to start? The classic example of horror in comics is Neil Gaiman's Sandman series, followed by the ongoing Lock and Key from Joe Hill. But in recent years, horror writers and artists have been honing their craft and getting even better. From American Vampire, Outcast, Nailbiter, and Pretty Deadly to Monstress, Harrow County, Descender, and Injection, horror comics and creators have been evolving. I've mentioned some of my favorite horror comics in the past, in the context of larger horror lists, but here are, in my humble opinion, the best horror comics that will really scare the crap out of you. Regression by Cullen Bunn, Danny Luckert, and Marie Inger. As I was browsing the shelves at my LCS, the cover of the very first issue in this series caught my eye. The detail in the explosion of bugs crawling up the protagonist's neck was mesmerizing. It grossed me out, so obviously, I had to buy the thing. But this story is about far more than creepy crawlies. The first arc in this series focuses on a man who's having hallucinations. A friend takes him to see a hypnotist who dabbles in past life regression, but the experience only makes things worse, far worse. I don't know if I like the turn the second arc has taken, but I am fascinated by the question of how our past lives can affect our present. Witches by Scott Snyder, Jock, Matt Hollingsworth, and Clem Robbins. These are witches like you've never seen them before. This story is about a family who relocates, eager for a fresh start, only to discover that something sinister lurks in the woods, except the far greater danger may be closer to home. This story is thrilling in the way in which it reinvents the concept of witches and the rules of human sacrifice, but it is the moody, atmospheric artwork that elevates it into high-level creepiness. The Empty Man by Cullen Bunn, Vanessa R. Del Rey, and Michael Garland. The premise: for the past year, the world has fallen prey to the empty man disease, and no one knows either its cause or how to cure it. Those who contract the disease suffer from fits of rage, hallucinations, and suicidal dementia. Sometimes, this leads to death. Those who survive end up living in a state of catatonia. The FBI and the CDC team up to investigate, and it's what they find that, for me, made this story well worth the read. Gideon Falls by Jeff Lemire, Andrea Sorrentino, and Dave Stewart. Lemire is known to be incredibly prolific within the comics world, and his stories have been highly acclaimed. But while much of his work skirts up against the edge of horror, this new series approaches it head-on in a way I can't wait to see unfold. The gorgeous artwork, the slowly unspooling and troubling story about a mysterious black barn that seems to just appear. I'm wetting my pants in excitement for the next installment.
Let me introduce myself. Bonjour. Je m'appelle Kero.
Bitter Root, David F. Walker, Chuck Brown, and Sanford Green. Monsters are no match for magical root workers in the Bitter Root comic saga. Bitter Root examines themes about race, phenomenology, and the supernatural. This is a Black-centric horror comic centralized around real, horrific events in Black history. A multi-generational family of monster hunters locates and cures the souls of individuals infected by hate. Racism transforms these people into formidable, monstrous versions of the evil inside their hearts. Suddenly, a tragedy befalls the family. Their legacy and morality are compromised when some members feel compelled to seek revenge for the tragedy, killing the monsters rather than curing them. Hellish beasts tear through the pages in Bitter Root. Meanwhile, new creatures rise, threatening all of humanity. Horror and history paint this immersive comic series red with blood. Blue and Green, Ram V, and Anand RK. Musicians are known for their dedication to their art. Sometimes, the intensity to perform, to reach an unattainable level of perfection, breeds a certain kind of unhinged psychosis. The psychological horror graphic novel Blue and Green from Image Comics explores the haunting relationship between musical pursuits and demons manifested from obsession. A struggling black jazz musician working as a music teacher returns home to attend his mother's funeral. Faced with death, feelings of failure about his own life overwhelm him. When a bewildering photograph turns up in his mother's home one night, he begins to question his connection to a former popular jazz musician. Jealousy, ambition, and an ethereal demon force the man to reconcile with his worst nightmares. Blue and Green is an artistic tour de force in the comic sphere. Dread spirals through the graphic novel with improvisational freedom found in jazz music. One of the best horror comics in history, Blue and Green will unnerve readers as they journey through a visible representation of music and madness. Homesick pilots, Dan Waters and Casper Weijinger, reminiscent of the films Monster House and The Shining, Homesick Pilots from Image Comics takes place in the summer of 1994. The lead singer of a local high school punk band goes missing inside a haunted house. Ghosts are restless inside the house, and the missing teen's bandmates discover her startling connection with the rickety residents. Homesick Pilots is a haunted house story with punk rock sensibilities, mixed with Japanese mecha action. Doused in a stylized pink, purple, white, and blue color palette, this comic erupts with every panel's kinetic visuals and electric energy. This is an essential horror book for anyone who appreciates aptitude for craft in the comics medium. The Nice House on the Lake, James Tynion IV and Alvaro Martinez Bueno. The most popular title released from Black Label is the currently running horror/sci-fi maxi-series, The Nice House on the Lake. Comics are a visual medium. The Nice House on the Lake illuminates how, when the visual and narrative elements of a comic work in tandem, the results can be jaw-dropping. In The Nice House on the Lake, an eccentric millionaire quietly invites a group of selected friends and acquaintances to his opulent lake house in the woods. When you gather random people together with varying professions, circumstances, and outlooks on life, tensions are sure to arise. The real terror begins when they realize there's horror prowling both inside and outside the sequestered lake house far from civilization. There's nothing like a vacation gone wrong story with disturbing imagery to make you reconsider your next getaway retreat.
What are you talking about? You live right down the road.
Archie, I'm not that Veronica. I'm the Veronica from before you died.
Afterlife with Archie, Roberto Aguirre Sacasa, Francesco Francavilla. In 2013, the Archie editorial crew took the definition of on-brand and fed it to a ravenous horde of flesh-eating shamblers. Archie chief creative director and current Riverdale showrunner Roberto Aguirre Sacasa matured Archie, Veronica, Jughead, Betty, and the other Varsity Jacket icons with a teen rating and a buffet of human organs in this excellent series. Though releases are few and far between, Afterlife hits a note of drama-heavy dread that's not afraid to veer and twist among an electric ensemble, each character hiding a cemetery of skeletons in their closet. But this churning requiem for youth wouldn't read so beautifully if not for artist Francesco Francavilla, channeling the dark side of Riverdale in reams of inky shadow. Each panel could be its own giallo film poster from the 70s, the mood-coloring echoing director Dario Argento's hyper-stylized gel lighting. Watching lovable goofball Jughead transform from a burger-devouring lunkhead to a people-devouring lunkhead may be hard to stomach for longtime readers, but it does make for a delicious horror comic. Aliens, Dead Orbit. James Stokoe, like fellow precision artists Jeff Darrow and the late, great Bernie Wrightson, James Stokoe doesn't stop drawing until nearly every millimeter of canvas is shaded, hatched, and stylized. As seen in Orc Stain and his Godzilla runs, a microscope is required to appreciate Stokoe's images in their hyper-articulate, chiseled depth. In Aliens, Dead Orbit, the cartoonist uses his talent to shape a cosmic graveyard of space junk, dwarfing in scope and mind-numbingly vast. Zoom in tightly enough, and one lone space engineer sits stranded in the wasteland. Though this miniseries utilizes one of the most iconic horror franchises in film history, it builds on its foundation by imposing a sheer sense of scale and futility. Yes, protagonist Wasilewski matches wits with the xenomorphs and facehuggers, but Stokey's art begs, what's the point in a celestial vacuum of hope, light years from any aid? Aliens, Dead Orbit is a Venn diagram of awe, depression, and the ghost of salvation, all splayed on 6.63-inch by 10.24-inch paper that feels as big as the universe at its most indifferent. Arkham Asylum, a serious house on serious earth. Grant Morrison, Dave McKean, Batman stories frequently play at horror. Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's Long Run and Grant Morrison's own Batman, Gothic, with Klaus Janson being prime examples, but Arkham Asylum, a serious house on serious earth, is the closest the Caped Crusader has ever come to a full-blown Francis Bacon nightmare. A powerful early mission statement from a young Grant Morrison brought to singularly unsettling life by fine artist and Sandman cover master, Dave McKean. Arkham is fundamentally a ghost story. Even if you ignore the backstory about the manor's murderous former residents, locked in the asylum with his greatest foes, Batman finds himself haunted both by a ghostly pale Joker and by the very Lovecraftian notion that sanity is a brittle, fleeting thing.
That was our show for today. What did you think? What's your favorite horror comic? Are there other titles that should be on this list? Let me know in the comments below. While you're at it, I'd be honored if you subscribe to my channel, share this video, and check out my Carl Vincent Vampire Hunter franchise also in the comments section. Until next time, this is Axel and for Kevin Given saying live long and prosper, may the force be with you, and keep reaching for the stars.